June the 3rd, 2019. As you're looking at images from GeoSat of the Gulf of Mexico, you can see the storm is starting to wrap up in intensity a little. I think this thing probably tomorrow, if not overnight, may become a tropical depression or a system. If it becomes a tropical storm again, it will be Barry. The paths are pretty much the same as they were this morning, except there's now 2 spaghetti models going over Houston, Texas. And the National Hurricane Center here in the 5-day forecast has it staying offshore. This is not a spaghetti model. Again, this is a cone, and that storm can move anywhere inside that cone. But again, it's keeping it off. And again, 2 of the models, watch out Houston. And that can be a devastating blow for not only Louisiana, but the nation, because the Chaffalaya Basin could be involved. And it's at its limits now. We'll look at that a little later, but 60% chance again of the tropical development it's moving northeastern toward the northeastern coast of Mexico. It says regardless of development, heavy rainfall, that could be key. The storm would strengthen if it stayed with this bottom purple line, but these 2 lines there that go up through Louisiana could be critical, and anywhere between those cones and the white line, anywhere in this area right here, because the height of the Mississippi River, the Arkansas River, Missouri River there's levees breaking. But down near the end of the Mississippi-Louisiana boundary, that Chaffalaya Basin, guys, could become critical. This is the Canadian model. Notice where this storm tracks up through Houston and right across Louisiana, the Baton Rouge area, and up through central Mississippi. This is June the 7th at this time, and it has tracked through that area. Notice your timestamp. Today is June the 3rd in 4 days. I keep mentioning the Chaffalaya Basin. I'm going to talk about some of the information about that thing. And it's really a man-made error that we may be paying for. The Achilles heel of the United States. Storm, according to the Canadian model, will track from there up through Tennessee, north, and spread a lot more moisture north of the Louisiana area. So that rain will be coming down, and it's still, Mississippi River has been up really high since March, and it hasn't crested yet. And Old Man River goes up slow and it comes down slow. Here's the problem. You're looking at Fort Adams, and this is right at the corner, southwestern corner of Mississippi in this area, and Simmsport, Louisiana. It goes down from there through Baton Rouge and the blue line. The red line is the Chaffalaya River, and it's part of the Chaffalaya River Basin. At one time, the Mississippi River was very close to running in that, and this is a long, long time ago, but in 2011, they had to open floodgates and stuff up at Fort Adams, and we'll look at that closer. But if this levee breaks at the Chaffalaya Basin, and they're talking about the news in that area, and AccuWeather and folks like that are starting. Let's go back to 2011, the last time that they opened the Morganza flood dams. You see this? That's the Mississippi River flooded to the right. They've only opened it twice in the history of the Morganza, and 2011 was one of those years. But this gives you a very good idea of what we're dealing with, except now much higher water. It's not just the Morganza dam there. You've got a hydro plant with a couple of other inlets coming in with the old river control system. Guys, they say in these high floods, if you stand on this bridge, it just shakes. But what you're looking at, and this is from the Corps of Engineers, this was going back to 2011 when they were opening. They had to open Morganza because it was about to flood Baton Rouge and New Orleans. So this is an outlet. It's an old river basin. And these are the areas then in 2011 that they expected to flood. Guys, you're looking at a lot of the territory that you see if you ever watch Swamp People. That's what all this beautiful areas. But if that changes in the Mississippi River, which is possible, and they're talking about it, that's what would be the Achilles heel. Here you have the old river control structure. This is right there at Morganza, in that area. And the Chaffalaya River, comes out into the Gulf at Morgan City. You can see the Chaffalaya River Delta. But if you left Baton Rouge and New Orleans high and dry, it would be catastrophic. We already have major flooding in areas where grain won't be planted, but that river is a major transport for petro, grains, materials, up and down that river, guys. And so what would happen, even though the river would still be there going through the Shafala River Basin, you would have hundreds of thousands of people flooded out in that basin. Again, just think of the area like you see in Swamp People. The houses are right on the water, and that river would rise. But you would have to rebuild all the ports. It would take probably 100 years to build the infrastructure back, the shipping and all. And we know we have friends that work on the Mississippi River down in the New Orleans area. But this, you can pause this little section here, guys, and look at how the rivers actually changed over time. Now, this chart is kind of a time lapse going back to the prior millennium, top left. In the center, in the 15th century, the river had made a big oxbow turn, like we see many of them drift, and it actually cut the Red River off that ran parallel with the Mississippi River and ran through the Shafala Basin. And then a fellow named Henry Shreve cut this opening in the turn, what's called Turnbull's Bend, in order to shorten the trip. Well, Shreveport was named after Mr. Henry Shreve. Now, if you look down in 1950, that whole bend had basically dried up into what's called the Upper Old River and the Lower Old River, but the Red River once again, was running parallel through the Shafala Basin down to Morgan City and out there. Then in 1963, to try to control some floods, they started building these dams and hydropower units in Morganza, here and here on what's called the Old River Closure and the lock. Then this runs into the Shafala River. That, again, 2011 was the last time. The river looks like it's going to get a lot a lot higher at this point. But not 2010, they were finishing the hydropower unit. And all of these are locks and levees and things like that are designed to be able to keep the Mississippi River from not going or not deserting Baton Rouge and New Orleans and permanently flowing through the Shafala Basin. Now, the local media is starting to pay attention. This came out 2 days ago on June 1st. It says why the Mississippi River and the Shafala River flooding is likely to happen more often. And this is a Fisherman's Wharf. This was May 29th. It's underwater. It said this year the flooding started early due to heavy snow and rainfall in the north. You remember when I did the video, we were up on the levee on the Mississippi River at Eagle Lake, having to ride the levee roads because the highways were foot deep. Well, now those roads are 6 feet deep, and it hasn't crested. It says in March, the Shafala River at Morgan City was above flood stage, which is 6 feet, cresting at 8.29 feet. It's continued to rise from there, guys, but that's expected to worsen when the Corps begins opening gates to the Morganza Control Thursday. Look at this. Now, they're trying to delay this opening, but it says this will be sending water from the swollen Mississippi River into the Shafala Basin. They've already issued flood evacuations and warnings, if I'm not mistaken, for that entire area. That's a very large area, that Shafala Basin, from that point down through Fort Morgan and out into the Shafala River Basin there. But the Morgan City officials can expect another 1 to 2 feet of water, possibly enough to challenge the highest crest recorded on the Shafala River, 10.53 feet on May 28, 1973. Doesn't sound much, but the Shafala River is very shallow. The homes and towns are right on the banks. In 2011, again, the last time Morganza was open, water from the Mississippi River came perilously close to topping the levee at New Orleans. People don't realize how close it came. He said there's a lot of pressure on those levees. If relief valves like the Morganza aren't open in time, disasters can strike. And this is part of that warning for the people below there. But many are concerned, and if you look up the Achilles heel of the United States, it would be this destruction of the ports from Baton Rouge to New Orleans. And again, 100 years at least to even be able to come close to replacing the infrastructure in place. So it's we are in those times, guys. I'm not trying to press the issue here, but we're only in the beginning of tropical season. The river's not going to crest until around June 11th in this area. That's it with the rainfall we have now. And they are concerned that if you look at AccuWeather about the addition to this flood from the tropical systems. Again, look at the record at 47.3 at the top. Right now we're at 43.9. That was Thursday. The chart was done. They expected to crest on June 7th at 4.5. That's without any additional rainfall. But on June 7th, the river's actually still rising. It will not crest, I know, here in Vicksburg until June 11th. So that's going to move down. And we're still getting rain north of here. But you notice in the red, it's moderate flooding. You get into the pink, and you're in major flooding. And then you're up near records. But we're living in perilous times, guys. I'm, again, not trying to create any type fear porn, but we've seen with the the tornadoes and the heat and the rain and the floods already. But looking at AccuWeather just today, and they're talking about the moisture being pulled up out of the Gulf of Mexico from the storm, calling it tropical moisture. It says late this week, moisture from the tropical system we're watching, guys, is likely to interact with non-tropical features over the southern plains to generate more heavy rainfall over places that are already experiencing serious flooding. We've seen this. Flash flooding, ongoing river flooded late week coming up, planning delayed further. And so if the storm pass come in anywhere from Houston in this area where that arrow is now, again, that's the path of the moisture, not the path of the storm. But it's just going to add to the problems. And guys, we're already seeing catastrophe in biblical proportions because not only in the entire Mississippi River Valley are there floods, can't plant. It's going to be months. Planting season will be long gone when we see a break. And up past that, in the breadbasket, over to the north and west of here, same thing. We are dealing with climate crisis because of grand solar minimum, but other nations are experiencing some of the same things with crops destroyed. So guys, be prepared. Make sure you got enough fresh water. Make sure you got a way, if you have to filter some river water or something like that, we have all of that on our website. Make sure you have some survival food in place. Think about this. They go to our website and look at some of the food specials. Many of them are half price, to where you can get several months now for half the price you would normally pay. And that could become critical. And like I said, biblical times, guys, who survived? Egypt prepared because Joseph was there. And many people in that area would have starved to death if they had not prepared for the 7 years of famine. We could be looking at that. Remember, I've talked about the temptation going back from the book of Judah and the other books, the lost books, that talk about Satan and his temptation. Well, but think about in the New Testament with Christ, what was the first temptation? It was bread after Christ came out after 40 days of fasting. He tempted him with bread. Of course, Christ won the conversation all the way through. But the New World Order is controlled by Satan with the Democrats and the way that they're acting, and you can see it day after day. It's demonically controlled. And so Satan will put every pressure on the entire planet to turn to him for salvation. He can stop this, and it's all a lie, but people will listen. And I think from the bottom of my heart that we are getting in those days, guys. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but look at the world. Look at over 200 tornadoes in May with record heat. Guys, it was 107 heat index here earlier this afternoon with a real temp of 101 in May. Gamma radiation pouring in through our weak shields. Guys, we're watching it. You watch it. Watch for hurricane updates. It's a heads up. Be safe. Air